It was never going to happen. Walter Koenig was turned down as a Star Trek, The Next Generation writer. When Star Trek, The Next Generation TNG launched in 1987, it promised a fresh vision of Gene Roddenberry's universe. New characters, a new starship, and a new century gave the franchise its boldest soft reboot yet. But for many original series actors, the birth of TNG also created an unexpected crossroads. Would their legacy be honored? Could they contribute behind the scenes? For Walter Koenig, best known as the ever-loyal Ensign Pavel Chekhov, the answer turned out to be a painful no. Koenig's desire to write for TNG is one of those fascinating behind-the-curtain stories that speaks volumes about the show's early growing pains and the tricky dynamic between past and future Star Trek. He wasn't asking for a cameo. He wasn't asking for Chekhov to be shoehorned into the 24th century. He wanted to write an episode, a fresh tale that honored Roddenberry's ideals while embracing the new crew. But according to Koenig himself, it was never going to happen. The offer that never became a script. Walter Koenig had already proven himself as more than an actor. In the years after Star Trek, the original series ended, he became an active writer, contributing to comics, novels, and screenplays. He even wrote The Infinite Vulcan for Star Trek, the animated series in 1973. By the time TNG was gearing up, Koenig's resume wasn't just about playing Chekhov. It included legitimate science fiction writing chops. When he approached the TNG production team, Koenig pitched an episode idea, one he felt fit perfectly into the new show's ethos. The concept remains largely unknown today, but Koenig has hinted it involved moral dilemmas and Federation politics, staples of Star Trek. Yet despite his enthusiasm, the production staff never invited him to submit a full script. The rejection wasn't personal so much as structural. Roddenberry and the showrunners were under intense pressure to establish TNG as its own thing. They famously resisted using original series actors or continuity early on. Leonard Nimoy, for example, didn't show up as Spock until the 5th season. Having an original series cast member writing a script in season 1 or 2 risked making TNG feel like a retread instead of a new frontier, breaking away from the original series' shadow. This separation was a deliberate creative policy. Roddenberry wanted a new generation of writers, people who had grown up watching Star Trek, but who could think beyond the constraints of the 1960s formula. You see, Fontana, a veteran of the original series, contributed early on, but even she found herself at odds with the new creative direction and left after season 1. If Fontana's presence as a seasoned Trek writer was already controversial, Koenig's would have been doubly so, as he was primarily associated with an on-screen role. Koenig later described the experience with good humor but obvious disappointment. In interviews, he said that his pitch was never going to happen because the show's producers were determined to cut the cord with the past. It wasn't about his abilities, it was about optics. They didn't want the press framing TNG as the old crew's fingerprints all over the new series. The irony of a franchise built on legacy. Ironically, TNG would eventually embrace the very legacy Koenig represented. By its 3rd season, the show's ratings had stabilized, and the writers began to weave in subtle nods to the original series. McCoy appeared in the pilot. Spock turned up in a 2-part episode. Scotty was rescued from a transporter buffer. These episodes were fan favorites precisely because they connected eras. But Koenig never got his shot at contributing from behind the scenes, even as an uncredited story consultant. Fans can't help but speculate what a Koenig-penned TNG episode might have looked like. Given his work on the Infinite Vulcan, it's easy to imagine an ambitious, character-driven story about genetic manipulation or ideological schisms within the Federation. Koenig has always leaned toward moral complexity, which would have fit perfectly with TNG's later season tone. His outsider perspective could have produced a classic. Koenig's later reflections. Koenig eventually came to terms with the rejection. In convention panels and interviews, he's spoken candidly about how TNG showrunners were simply not interested. It was never going to happen became a sort of shorthand for how Hollywood often treats actors from iconic roles, pigeonholing them rather than recognizing their full range of talents. Nevertheless, Koenig didn't fade from Star Trek entirely. He returned to play Chekhov in the feature films through Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and later lent his voice to various fan projects and audiobooks. In 2013, he even received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, proof that his contributions to science fiction went far beyond a single series, a missed opportunity that adds to TNG's mythos. Looking back, Koenig's rejected pitch stands as one of the small, tantalizing what-ifs of Star Trek history. Just as fans speculate about unmade films or abandoned scripts, The idea of a Koenig-authored TNG episode invites creative daydreaming. Would it have tackled the Romulan resurgence? The ethics of the